Infinity is a newly released RPG for the Game Boy Color with a very interesting development history. Although it's just now seeing the light of day, Infinity's development actually started way back in 1999 as an official game for the GBC, but by 2001 it struggled to find a publisher due to interest shifting towards the new GBA and was cancelled despite nearing completion. In 2016, the unfinished ROM was released to the public, and in 2021, a Kickstarter was made to garner funding to complete the game. Support for the Kickstarter was monumental, raising over $250,000 and exceeding every stretch goal. 4 years later, not only is the game completed, it now promises improved sprite work, 6 languages, and upcoming ports to Steam and Switch. Now, after completing the GBC version, I'll give you my opinion on this 26-year-old project finally made whole. Our story begins with a knight from centuries past cutting down 2 important figures and grieving over his actions. Jumping forward centuries later, we see a different knight, our main character Sir Connor, grieving over the death of his wife at the hands of a plague. Following this, he falls into a depression and is stripped of his title as King Aldric's knight. 6 years later, Connor is summoned by the same king for a meeting in which we learn that the king, thanks to the immortality-granting soul gem in his possession, senses a great evil stirring from within the earth, and that his kingdom's army will need to join together with the opposing army of the north to combat this greater threat. Connor is reinstated as a knight and sent through the dangerous northern territories as an ambassador. Sir Connor enlists the help of a tracker and sets off, both to honor his late wife and to bring an end to a war that he does not support. The quest then takes multiple unexpected turns, pulling Sir Connor across various war-torn lands and pitting him against far more than just this nameless evil, all while he comes to grips with a dark secret regarding his late wife and unravels a centuries-old mystery that will change the course of history. Along the way, his team will grow into 4 strong, and he'll find other magical gems to empower his team. Each member has their own distinct personality. Connor is a broken but virtuous man, Ryan the rogue is an opportunistic scoundrel, Elia the mage has an unbreakable optimistic faith, and Victor is quick to anger and just wants to be rid of his curse. There's a point in the game where you're given the ability to travel around the entire map freely, and possibilities truly open up in a big way. Not only are you now given the choice in which order to complete the remaining quests, but returning to previous and completely optional locations may grant you with extra story and character interactions, side quests, boss fights, gems, and skill techniques. Be sure to make mental notes of interesting or inaccessible locations as you play, because returning there later will likely pay off. The writing is on point and flows nicely, without ever feeling too wordy. There are some real dark events and ideas to contemplate here, but there's also some pretty witty writing to help elevate the mood. The game's climactic conclusion is sure to satisfy. Infinity's gameplay is that of a traditional RPG, similar to the likes of Final Fantasy. You'll travel from town to town through forests, caves, and dungeons with forks in the road to explore for items and equipment while engaging in random and boss encounters. Each team member has their own proclivities, and their stats can be buffed through leveling up and using equipments like swords, staffs, armors, and rings that can increase their attack, defense, speed, special skills, and grant elemental effects. I found myself absolutely loving the combat. While it does use a turn-based battle system, fights are fast-paced and highly engaging, much like Chrono Triggers. You can reposition your characters on the field, attack from up close or at range, and enemies have the same luxuries. There are over 100 enemy types with different fighting styles, abilities, and weaknesses. Boss fights often have a puzzle element where you need to determine where to focus your efforts and which teammates to use for offense and which to use for support. For example, here in this early boss fight, Victor starts surrounded by hostile tree roots, but one leap attack will place him to the right of the tree, allowing him to escape excessive damage. You might have guessed that fire damage works well on this boss, and keeping Elia out of harm's way allows her to support Connor and Victor in their direct offense. I lost to most of the game's bosses on my first tries, but a convenient save system allowed me to jump right back in with a better plan on the next attempt. Each team member's techniques steadily evolve as the game progresses and offer unique and fun advantages. One of my favorites is Victor's Wild Call, that increases his attack substantially at the cost of losing control of him as he goes on a mindless rampage, targeting any enemies on the battlefield that he can find a clear path to. The aforementioned gems you'll collect aid in battle as well, boosting certain elemental skills or giving other strong buffs. There's a catch though. Some gems have a limited amount of energy, and once depleted, you'll need to unequip them for multiple battles to allow them to recharge. This encourages you to save gems for tougher fights and alternate using them, since some will be available while others are benched. I could keep gushing about the combat, but just know that it gets better as the game progresses and rarely feels like a chore. Random encounters are frequent and repels aren't that common and expire very fast, but running from battle unharmed is typically easy since your team is faster than most enemies, and each member gets to take a try at allowing the whole team to escape. You'll need to level grind some, but not an excessive amount, and when a team member levels up, they get fully replenished in health and skill points. Outside of combat, you'll find the occasional puzzle or obstacle to overcome, small side quests, and hidden areas containing powerful loot. The devs made sure that backtracking through previous areas is rarely an identical experience, and I really appreciated that. The presentation is great, environments are detailed, and the music is varied and enjoyable. There are some cuts to full-screen scenes when the story calls for it, and environmental effects like mirages are put to good use. Heavy inspiration has been taken from the GBC version of Dragon Warrior 3 for the overall sprite work, which Infinity's graphics do exceed, but it doesn't quite reach the visual fidelity of Lufia: The Legend Returns. One nitpick I have is that there's no map accessible while traveling the overworld, so I often got lost on the open sea. A static overworld map pop-up with a blinking dot to show where you are would go a long way in preventing this. Performance is smooth, and I didn't run into a single graphical or gameplay glitch in my 15-hour playthrough. This is a thoroughly well-programmed game. Ironically, due to the game's 24-year delay, Infinity has become a significantly better game than it would have been had it been released in 2001. It has the advantage of being of the GBC era, but also having devs who are able to look back at it from our decade's perspective to make sure it held up against some of the all-time great RPGs of the late 90s and early 2000s, and they definitely succeeded. If you're looking for a rock-solid old-school RPG that continues to expand and reward you as you play it, you can't do much better. It starts out strong, if not a little basic, but ramps up steadily to the halfway mark where most of your combat tools become available to you, and then continues to grant you more and more freedom while presenting new and exciting challenges and reasons to revisit previous locations, and I simply cannot recommend it enough. You can grab the 2 to 3 hour Infinity demo from the description below, and your demo save can be used with the full version of the game if you decide to continue your journey. Infinity can be purchased from Incubate Games as ROM only or physically for use with any device that plays GBC games. The Switch and Steam versions of the game should be available sometime in 2026.